Hello and welcome to another 5-minute video for the level 3. We're going to be talking about sheet structure in this session. So sheets have a layered structure because of the filtration mechanism, and because they have a layered structure there's a potential for two-sidedness in the sheet. One of the chemicals that we use sometimes is aluminium sulfate, and the way in which alum works depends on pH. Sometimes it works one way at higher pHs, it works in an entirely different way at lower pHs, so it's useful to have a look at that as well. So for filler retention, large particles, things that are above about 200 microns, they get mechanically entrapped in the matrix. So that's retained by the filtration mechanism. Small particles less than 10 microns, then those are retained by electrostatic forces. And we've really discussed this when we talked about, in one of the other videos, about the mechanisms of retention, where we talked about patch and complex and bridging and microparticle. So here we're sort of really looking at the large particles and what happens when they get caught or don't get caught. So here we've got one frame of the forming fabric. The yellow represents the forming fabric, this here represents a couple of fibres, and the red dots represent filler particles. So when the sheet is first beginning to form, as you can see, this frame is quite large compared to the filler particles, so they will just fall through. As fibres start to form on the mesh, then the holes that are available will start to become smaller and smaller. And as more layers of fibre build up, the holes will become smaller and smaller. And this will enable the filler particles to get caught. So as the layers build up, then the amount of filler particles going to get caught is going to increase. So this is a sort of well-known diagram for the filtration mechanism. Here we've got the forming fabric. Here you've got a layer of fibres that have already formed, and you can see here subsequent layers being formed. Initially we said small particles, so filler particles and even fines, will fall through the wire. They may even get washed out, they may get caught in this initial layer or two of fibres, and then as more water passes through, they'll just get washed away, which is sad. They didn't get caught and then they got washed away. In the upper layers, because of this filtration mechanism, every particle is going to get caught. So there's a potential for having a very two-sided sheet, where it's going to be very smooth on the top side because we've caught all the filler particles and they have filled in all the valleys between all the fibres. On the bottom side of the sheet, we've got all those valleys between the fibres as well, but some filler just went through anyway and didn't stick within that fibre matrix, and other filler particles will have got stuck in that matrix but got washed away. So therefore we've got a much rougher wire side surface. We can throw in things like alum to improve formation, and around about pH 4.5-ish, the aluminium exists as individual ions, as Al3+ ions. Existing as Al3+ ions, they will then attract negatively charged fibres, and so you'll get a flocculation effect, and that's one way to retain the fibre. And the more fibre you retain, the smaller the holes will be, the more filler you retain. But if you raise the pH, getting towards neutral, get to around 6, then aluminium no longer exists as individual aluminium ions. It forms aluminium hydroxide. So these are cationic aluminium hydroxide flocks that are represented here. So what we've now got is negative fibres with positive patches on them, and that should remind you, if you've seen some of my other videos, about patch flocculation. So now, because you've got a positive patch there, another fibre where there is no aluminium hydroxide will be attracted to the aluminium hydroxide patch, and therefore you'll have a different mechanism for called patch flocculation. So, summary of our little video on sheet structure. Initially, all the fines and the fibres will fall through the forming mat. All the fines and filler will get caught in the top layers, and there'll be a gradation as you go through. That will easily result in a very two-sided sheet. And aluminium has different retention mechanisms depending on the pH. Okay, well, thank you for listening to this short video, and I hope you'll feel free to follow us on any of this social